how long are we now? Obviously, quick maths. Like, what are we now into the session?
We're now around between 30 and 40 minutes into the session.
What am I going to do with the rest of the 20 minutes I paid for?
Chill out.
You knob.
Just chill. Just chill out. You get to chill out, and I'm a coach. You don't get to call me a knob.
I'm going to start by asking how your week was. I know we always do that, but I think it's a good starting point for every episode.
After last week, it was a bit more relaxed, Jake, should we say?
Yeah, I think it was. And also we had the beauty of the 3-day English summer that we get every year. So I was able to just go and do loads of stuff in the sun.
Oh, very nice.
I'm sure all of our listeners are really interested to hear.
No one cares.
Yep, perfect. Okay, should we just get straight into
Let's dive into what they actually care about, shall we?
Perfect.
Today we're going to talk about programming. We get a lot of questions mainly on Instagram DM about programming. Coaches, great coaches who open up studios, normally their biggest, not necessarily worry because they're really good at it anyway, but their biggest question is always around product and programming. Like, what does the programming look like? How can I do it with 6 people in the same group, or 8 people, or 4 people? How do I structure it? All that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, as a coach myself, I was really tied up in it right at the start. But after talking to some very experienced studio owners, we spoke to about 10, I think, right at the beginning, and having the experience that we have now, it's important, but it's nowhere near as important as you think it is.
What I appreciate, though, is that obviously we've worked with many personal trainers over the years, but what I find about like studio owners is that the questions are very much related to fulfillment and delivery and how they're actually going to build this amazing product and this amazing studio. What we used to find, especially with like online personal trainers, this is not really a dig at anyone, but like a lot of the questions were related to, so what hook can I use on my reel to get like 50,000 people to like watch it? So these questions are questions that we can answer in a long form format, like a podcast, in terms of like how to get more views on your reels. Just go on Google, I guess. But again, these are on this podcast, we answer questions that you can't find on Google. There you go. That's the value prop.
Because they're questions that fitpreneurs want the answers to.
Exactly. So what we're going to do in this episode is basically talk through what we do here at Revamp from a programming perspective, how we lay out all of our sessions, how many people in each session, what happens if sessions aren't very popular or we add a time and no one turns up for it, what then happens? So like all of those kind of like questions and problems that studio owners experience that probably no one else does. Hopefully we're going to put them all straight today.
Cool. Let's take you back. Right at the beginning of Revamp, we were going to do 1 to 4. So 1 coach to 4 clients. We then did tons of testing with different groups, mainly involving family and friends who come in, and we tested the programming, the rigidity of it, the efficiency of it, everything, because we wanted to do that before we actually launched.
What are you testing there though? Like what's the criteria that you're looking to test?
Mainly testing what it looks like from a programming perspective with the small group. And the space. So how efficient it was in the space, whether we could start to pair people up, understanding how many movements we needed within a program, all of that kind of stuff we started testing. And it's a good job we did because we tested it and soon found out that 1 to 6 was actually very easy in the small group setting that we have. And obviously that makes a huge difference to the revenue and the capacity and everything else that goes with it. So first of all, before you actually open a small group, get family and friends together, get them to come in and do something between 3 and 5 testing sessions, because that's going to get you to understand the programming a lot quicker than actually writing it out and imagining it will.
And it's so important to get people who aren't coaches or trainers to experience the sessions as well, because they're giving you feedback that all of your other members would have. So stuff that might seem trivial to you, to them is actually quite a big component. Like we found, didn't we, like very early on, just people know, like where they stand during their rest periods was like something that we needed to consider, because obviously with a small group, people are going to be standing within a limited space anyway. So we need to build out the room, put the equipment in places that allows them to do that without getting in the way.
Yeah. And that's a big point, because your programming will change depending on how much square footage you have. Like we wanted to make sure we have 900 square foot here. We wanted to make sure when Babs was doing an overhead press of Olympic bar, she's not going to hit JC in the head with the Olympic bar, right?
I just have that like kind of Laura on Hardy. Was it Laura on Hardy, like, or Chuckle Vision, where they just like turn around with a ladder and just smack someone in the head?
Yeah, to you.
Yeah, we needed to avoid that.
So we found out that 1 to 6 was easily manageable. So we kicked off with 1 to 6, and 6-7 months later, we still have 1 to 6 to this day. But how do we execute that really, really successfully within a 900 square foot studio? Because some people might be listening to this and go, 900 square foot, 1 to 6, are you joking? Well, let me tell you, if it was up to me, we could easily go to 1 to 8.
Well, I think we had Ash from Evolve down, and we've obviously spoken about Ashton before, we're good friends, and he came down and had a look at it. It was like, guys,
you can fit 16 in here.
You can have 16 people working out in here. And I thought he was joking, but he kind of looked at us like really like optimistically. And I was like, oh, I don't know, we can.
Yeah, we haven't got the bottle to do that, Ash. 1 to 6 is absolutely perfect. And I think personally, and speaking to a lot of people in the industry with small groups, anything higher than 1 to 6 almost dilutes the premium feel of it. And it makes it feel more like a large group than a small group. I think 1 to 6 is a really nice sweet spot. We will have people disagree with that and say like 1 to 4 should be the max. For us, after testing everything, 1 to 6 is the sweet spot for us. And that will change from business to business. But most people who we have when we launch their studios, we set them up with a 1 to 6 model. And that works well.
But we made a few mistakes though, didn't we, at the beginning in terms of, and I'm sure we're going to talk about all of like the actual session layout and how we rotate around equipment and all that kind of thing. But we actually had a 1 to 6, but we had a 1 to 8 conditioning class as well.
Yes. Yeah. We ran this, we had 2 separate products. So one of them was a semi-private product, and the other one was what we called Team Sweat product, which was a 1 to 8. The reason we did that was because we felt like clients would like the option of having something which was a bit more fast paced. But we soon found out that it was nowhere near as booked as the 1 to 6 PT was. And I think that's down to perceived value of that session.
And also potentially even like the branding of it, like calling it a sweat session, I think is a little bit intimidating, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. We have components of that within the program anyway, within the PT program anyway, which we'll get onto. But we soon looked at the data and retracted that back off the timetable because it wasn't working. I actually think with larger studios where you have 2 separate rooms or 3 separate rooms or even just, way more space, I think it becomes a lot easier. 1 to 8 people in 900 square foot hitting burpees and walkouts and things like that we had in that session didn't work as effectively as we thought it would. So we took it out. So now we only have 1 to 6, and that's working incredibly well.
And we keep talking about this, don't we? Like just the simplicity of what we do here. It's like, and we've had so many members talk to us in the last few weeks. So definitely after, obviously, the potential move to the other gym, obviously that we spoke about last week. But like so many of them are just saying, I just love how simple it is. I love how it's just one product. And again, that might be to our detriment. But again, like it all depends on what you're growing the business for. And for us, like this is a lifestyle business for us that we love running and that we're not necessarily involved in terms of the fulfillment. And in terms of just delivering value off the model we have right now, just that one product, the small group PT, is just working really well.
Complexity kills businesses, doesn't it? A lot of the time. Well, especially studios and gyms. The more complex it is, the harder it is from an operational standpoint, and then you have more drag.
And then and what we found definitely at the beginning with the Team Sweat session, like we were having to create 2 different programs every 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Which was, again, just like double the amount of work.
Yeah. Let's get back onto programming. So full transparency, Jake and I don't do our programming here. I did at the start, and frankly, I hadn't programmed properly for a lot of years. I felt like it was a decent program, but we got feedback quite quickly from coaches. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to hand this off. So one of our coaches, over 15 years experience, amazing. She programs all of our 8 weeks. So let's talk about the program. So we program here in 8-week blocks. Again, some coaches do it in 4, some do it in 6. We do it in 8. Complexity and having to arrange things is a drag, and we've found that the sweet spot's 8 with people and members anyway, and they love it. So we program in every 8-week blocks. Now, there's 3 phases to the structure of each program. So first of all, there'll be a Monday session. So there's 6 different types of program. We're open Monday to Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. So a Monday, a Tuesday program, Wednesday program, and we rotate them every single 8 weeks. So the Monday program next week is on Tuesday, and then the following week's on Wednesday, and it's just rotated like that. So people get different sessions when they're in here. So that's the first thing. There's kind of 3 different blocks to each program. There is a movement prep block, where all it says on the program on the big TVs in here is movement prep.
Let's just, should we just walk through this like an example? So I'm going to pretend I'm a member coming to this gym. I've walked in.
Okay.
Hey, Jack.
Hi, Jake.
I'm here to work out today. Over to you.
I'm glad you're not here to have a coffee.
No, over to you. What are we doing first?
Okay, Jake.
I like visualizing this.
So first, Jake, you weirdo, we're going to do 5 to 10 minutes of movement prep. So dynamic stretching, some light cardio, all of those things to increase heart rate. I don't think we need to tell anyone who's listened to this podcast all of this, but we do about 5 to 10 minutes of movement prep. Now, it's called movement prep on the programming because we like to give autonomy to the coaches.
And we didn't at the beginning, did we?
No.
Well, obviously, we've always wanted to give autonomy to the coaches, but we thought the more stuff on the program that they can use and not have to really kind of rely on themselves too much, the better for them. But the feedback we got from coaches was like, we want to have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to actually the movement prep based on what session is going to actually be happening.
And the programming in general, actually.
Yeah.
Which we'll get onto. So movement prep, 5 to 10 minutes. And then we go into a strength piece.
Hold on a minute.
Jake, I don't care about you anymore.
I'm finished the movement prep, Jack. Now what?
Now, Jake, we go into a strength piece. So that is around 25 to 35 minutes of strength work. That consists of 4 movements. Now, that will change from program to program, but we're talking about 2 compound movements and 2 isolation pieces normally, with some supersets thrown in. So when I talked about coaches having autonomy, we actually gave them autonomy in the strength piece as well. So instead of calling something, for example, a goblet squat, it was programmed as a squat. Now, that's obviously far back from what actually the strength piece is, but that means the coach can go, okay, I have, let's use Babs again. I have Babs in this session and I have Sandra in this session, right? Now they're at different states of the game in terms of where they are from a fitness standpoint and a strength standpoint. So I know Babs can hit a barbell back squat, and I know Sandra can hit a goblet squat of a kettlebell. So if we just have squat on the program, it enables the coach to have full autonomy on what that squat looks like. We might also have June, who can do like a wall squat or a Swiss ball squat, something like that to regress it even more. So coaches like the fact that they can be a bit more dynamic with how they choose and what progression or regression they choose with that movement. And we've found that to work best with our programming.
And also that completely covers the objection that some coaches might have, as well as clients, of what happens in small group PT when you have varying abilities, varying ages. Like, how do you actually program the sessions? And it was literally what you just said there, where it's like you choose one movement and you just regress it or progress it depending on the individual.
Yeah, again, we took tons of advice from other studios, and we found the most popular approach to programming and being able to give every single person in a session a kick-ass session was to use what they called like an exercise continuum. So a long line, and you'd slide people up and down a continuum based on where they're at. So if we have squat, which is middle of the continuum, they can slide up to barbell back squat, they can slide up to front squat with barbell if they want, or they can slide back to a regress movement, a Swiss ball squat or a wall sit or something like that, right?
And I made a really cool visual on this in the newsletter, so go and subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, subscribe to the newsletter because Jake did make a cool visual.
Spent a lot of time on
it. Took him too long. So there we go. So Jake, so far in your session, we have done a 5 to 10 minute movement prep.
Thank you.
We have done a 25 to 35 minute strength block.
Thank you. So how long are we now? Obviously, quick maths. Like, what are we now into the session?
We're now around between 30 and 40 minutes into the session.
What am I going to do with the rest of the 20 minutes I've paid for?
Chill out.
you knob.
Just chill out. Just chill out. You get to chill out. And I'm a coach. You don't get to call me a knob.
Hey, quick one from us. If you're enjoying this episode, you'll love our free weekly newsletter.
It's for current and aspiring studio owners who are looking for the latest growth hacks to sign up more members and keep them.
It's a quick 2-minute email covering the stuff we're testing in our own gyms.
So you'll be getting access to what's working today.
If you're interested, you can join 3,500 gym owners and go to thefitpreneur.com and subscribe.
That's thefitpreneur.com. Anyway, back to the episode. Now we're going to the conditioning piece. So a lot of coaches will argue that you don't necessarily need the conditioning piece. Like they can just hit 2 more pieces of strength and have a really good session. There's obviously, I agree with that to a certain point. I think general population, in general, that's what we have here in our small group studio. They want to walk out sweaty.
Because that's what they perceive exercise as, right? Like,
yes.
Yes. That's what they enjoy out of exercise. And that's what many people enjoy out of exercise, where it's like, you want to feel like you've done something. And sometimes when it comes to strength work, like, that's a feeling you don't necessarily get straight away.
Yeah, you might get a little sweaty, but not as much as you would at hitting like a hard interval session on a bike erg, for example. So I think coaches in general, don't be naive to how other people feel and how the general population feels, and don't try and program around what you like. I think that is the biggest mistake we see. Coaches going, no, you don't need a conditioning piece because we can just hit like 4 sets of back squat, we can hit 5 sets of deadlifts and you'll have a great session. That is the case. But the general population don't really care that that's the case.
I think that somebody said once, like, don't ever create a business out of what people need. Create it out of what people want. Yeah. Because once people are paying customers and paying clients,
amen, brother.
Then like you can start educating them on what they need, right? But the point is, you can't start educating them on what they need before they actually start becoming a client, because they just won't sign up. So it's about giving them what they want first and foremost. And then over time, start delivering the seeds of information, which ultimately leads to what they actually need.
And with that in mind, our clients go from the strength piece into the conditioning piece, which is around 10 to 20 minutes, depending on what's programmed. So these are like circuit-based, they're AMRAPs, EMOMs, those kind of type sessions, the marker sessions that I love. And they get an amazing 10 to 20 minutes of high work rate, heart rate up, sweating, feeling awesome with slightly louder music. So they walk out of here.
Sounds like a good night.
Yeah, it's a great night. They walk out of here feeling sweaty, smile on their face, like they've had an amazing session. And that is an unbeatable feeling.
And also, like, I think the conditioning piece is great in terms of building community as well, because you can throw in games and like cool little competitions and things like that, which again is something that another gym just wouldn't do. So you can add in your own little gems of excitement towards the end.
Absolutely, which leads us quite nicely on to the question that we get. Guys, 4 movements, 6 people. How on earth do you do that, right?
I have never been asked that question, but...
Oh, I've been asked that question a few times.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's because you speak to no one.
Well, and also like when it just straight up, when it comes to programming and like session layouts and, you know, exercises, I mean, I've never been a PT. I only help market the gym and get people in the room. You keep them here. And so all of this is over my head, hence why you're talking a lot during this podcast, and hence why I tend to talk a lot during the actual like marketing podcast. Just on that point, by the way, just going to quickly stop you in mid-conversation. One of our clients is actually launching his gym today.
Yes,
and let me just literally, he opened up his calendar following the appointment queue and the launch kit we gave him, and he's had, let me just quickly, it's what we recording this at 11:30. He's had 32 people booking appointments since 9 o'clock this morning. How cool is that?
I got a big smile on my face.
Yeah, really. 32 people who he's been nurturing over the last 2-3 months who have now booked in appointments. And that's without opening up to the rest of the waiting list as well.
With the sales deck and structure to the consultations, you can probably assume a 60% close minimum out of those. With the front end, so a 299 front end, 20 people times 299 easily. Oh my God, I'm not going to do the maths, but it's around 6K.
Yeah,
awesome. Into the business before he even opens. His first session's in like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Really cool. Thanks for that.
No worries. I'm just throwing that in there.
Made me smile. So let's talk about 6 people, 4 movements. this is very, very simple, and people are going to go, obviously. We don't have two people waiting on the side of the room, waiting to jump in so we can match up with 4 and 4. We pair 2 pairs up. So really, really simply, you will find with 6 people, there is easily 2 to 4 people in the room that are at the exact same stage, very similar age, similar strengths, and it can make it work quite nicely. And the beauty of that is they hit their movement, they rest when the other person hits their movement. So actually, from a timing perspective, it works perfectly. But also, talk about building relationships in sessions. We've paired people up here who now go out together and do stuff together because they've just been paired up lifting weights.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. I think Grace in Northern Ireland says that she actually adds a section onto the end of her sessions where people just have an opportunity to walk around the car park with each other.
Yeah, really cool. Love that. Such a great idea. But this is also why 1 to 8 I feel could work. I do feel it's a lot of people, and I do feel you lose the premium feel of the small group. But if you're a 1 to 8 studio and it works great for you, that is amazing, because you can easily just have 4 pairs of 4 movements. Yeah. And it worked perfectly for exercise and rest times. So it'll be interesting to hear people's feedback. If you're watching this on YouTube, feedback underneath to let us know how you get on with the 1 to 8, if you do have 1 to 8, or if you tested it before and it didn't work. Like, give us your feedback, because we're always interested to hear it. So yeah, that's how we program and how we do 1 to 6. Hopefully I've covered everything there in terms of the structure.
Yep.
Number of weekly sessions I've got down here. We obviously Monday to Thursday we have 7 sessions a day on average. On Friday we have 5 sessions that happen here. We don't take any evening sessions on Friday. So this is obviously a bit more timetable. Saturday morning we have 3 sessions, and we don't have any sessions on a Sunday. That may change in the future. For now, that works really well for us. That gives us a capacity of 80 to 85 recurring members. That timetable, which serves us lovely for our lifestyles.
And that actual timetable in terms of the times and everything, that's all in the newsletter. So we won't obviously bore you with like every single time of every session on the pod, but those times were specifically chosen based on the client base we were thinking that we're going to have.
Yeah.
And again, you learn stuff as you go. Like, we thought like early mornings before work, it was going to be chocker, and then every evening was going to be chocker, and then the ones during the day weren't, but then every single lunchtime of that fair was booked up, isn't it?
Yeah, we felt like we were going to be able to utilize the studio in the day for other kind of revenue levers, but it's worked out that the 9:15, 10:15 and 12:30 sessions are the most popular.
Yeah.
With our demo, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Like, we've got 90% of our members are female, 40 to 60 years old. Many of them work from home or don't work or retired. So like in the day works perfectly. Mm-hmm. And because we're on a high street, it also gives, like, people go kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone where they come work out. Like today, one of our members worked out, got his haircut, come back here for a meeting with me, and it worked. Like, he's like fire, done for the day, you know? So it works incredibly well. I want to talk about capacity a little with we've got how we manage capacity, how we think about it. So obviously we're 1 to 6. I've talked to you about programming. I want to talk a little about capacity. So we've seen the data and the evidence to say that working at 80% booked sessions is kind of where you want to sit. So we use software for this called Legit Fit. What Legit Fit does, it tells you the capacity of the timetable booked for that week. As people book, which is really great. It's a great feature. So we can see that 80% booked timetable for the week is a sweet spot for us. If we go too far over that, people start to not get the sessions they want. And then you get grumpy people and therefore churn a lot of the time. So 80% is where we sit. Now, we've got around 80 users right now, 67 recurring and like 13 to 15 front end challenges right now as we sit. And the session structure is the same. So everyone has on average 3 sessions a week. It's the same across the challenge and our main membership. And that's why we did it. So we could easily understand and predict capacity. And that gives us around 80% booked every single week without fail.
The difficulty from an acquisition standpoint, though, is managing both the front end offer and the membership offer in terms of capacity on either of those. So one thing that we've done up until probably about 2 months ago was we got the number of people we were taking in for the challenge was the capacity that we needed for the challenge, right? Whereas this last sales phase that we went through, we overextended ourselves on purpose so that we could overflow the bucket to a point where some of those challenges would then inevitably not want to continue, which would then level off the bucket again.
Yeah.
That's a little bit risky, and it's a risk that we took, but we wanted just to test it and see what happened with the timetable. It didn't have a huge impact on the timetable, but it definitely filled it a bit more than it would usually.
We touched 85%.
Yeah. So what? Obviously, now that we're into the weeks where some of those are now dropped off, we're going to take a little bit more of a conservative role now, aren't we, for the next 2 months of like taking in maybe 10 on the challenge for this month and then maybe another 10 next month.
Yeah.
But doing so that like we're allowing for that churn and not impacting the timetable at all in the meantime.
Yeah, it works
but
well.
It's a challenge, like in more ways than
managing it is definitely 100%. I just want to go back to programming quickly and talk about how we get feedback. I think it's important. Obviously, we listen to member feedback a lot on programming, but the biggest piece of feedback we get on the programming is the coaches meetings that we have. So every 8 weeks, I told you that we do the new program. Obviously, our programmer, she sets the programming, sends it to the coaches, so they have the link on WhatsApp to look over. And then what we always do every single 8 weeks, we take our coaches out for dinner, and we have a great meeting between us all, and we talk about the programming, what we like about it, what we don't like about it. The final changes are then made, and then Jake logs in the programming into all the TVs, and we are set for the next 8 weeks. So
which is a bit of a sigh of relief at that point, because it's like, program's done for another 8 weeks. We can just kind of like chill on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And also like just from retention, like with members, like if they know they're getting a new program every 2 months, it's exciting. It's like, because we can make a big thing of it. Like, new program starting to like next week. Like you're going to love this one. We've included some exercises that you've mentioned and all this kind of thing. Like definitely helps as opposed to just doing the same thing again and again and again. And
it's always progressive for the member. Like the progressive in a coach's head is always, are they more advanced movements? Is there more sets? Is it periodized? Like all of these things come in from a coach's perspective, but the member's idea of progression is, I'm lifting a barbell now instead of dumbbells.
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean? I'm going to a single leg TRX instead of a goblet squat. Like all of these things, that is what the members see as progression.
Mm-hmm.
So your idea of progression is not the same from your members.
Which is why it's so nice once we get to a point where obviously it's just monthly members, because then it's like the coaches will only ever see the monthly members and therefore can make alterations to the program, which they're going to like and it's going to work. So yeah, no, it's all heading in the right direction.
I think we've covered everything program-wise.
Yeah.
Jake.
Do you want to just do a quick summary?
Yeah, sure. So don't make SPT more complex than it needs to be from a programming perspective, guys. The members are the most important thing when it comes to your programming, not your own thoughts and the way you want to program. Think about your members first. Complexity kills any kind of business and programming, so keep it nice and simple. We work in 3 blocks of our programming. So each program has, each session, shall I say, has movement prep phase, a strength phase, and a conditioning phase, which tends to be around 50 to 55 minute sessions. Anything over 55 is too long. Like most of our sessions are about 50 minutes. So that enables like a nice 10-minute detox and to rejig the studio for the next session. We are 1 to 6. To do that effectively with the 4 strength movements is we just do 2 pairs. So we keep it really, really simple. We work with an exercise continuum for different abilities in the session, which works really well. We keep it pretty broad. So coaches have autonomy, like we talked about. Instead of goblet squat, we just say squat, and then they can throw any piece of equipment into that and make it as advanced as they like. And then we get feedback every single 8 weeks from our coaches, take them out for a nice dinner, have a good time as a team, and make sure the programming is ready for the next 8 weeks.
Perfect. That's summed up nicely.
That's everything. And members see the programming when they come into the studio on 2 TVs, which is in each room here. If you've got one room, just one big TV is absolutely fine. And we structure it on there so they can see it's just not made up. There is general structure for the day. And that's how we work our programming. I don't think there's anything else to add.
No, I think if anything else, this is probably the only episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts that talks about programming, small group, personal training sessions. We are niche, guys. We are niche. It's the way to be.
I bet there is more, but I bet they go into ridiculous detail that doesn't actually
biomechanics
need to be gone into. Yeah, which is interesting in a different way. But hopefully everyone's found this really useful. Remember, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. You hit the like button. We never say that, but apparently it helps.
Yeah.
And hopefully you found tons of value from this.
Have a good week, guys.
That's the pod.